What is a clairvoyant, first of all?
Well, she doesn't. Okay, I should be clear because she doesn't even consider herself a clairvoyant. She doesn't like to call herself anything, but a clairvoyant would be able to like it. You know, it's kind of like a medium. They can like perceive things, otherworldly things. You know, and like sometimes it's something from the past or future. Like they're just getting information from somebody else. But so, dude, I met this girl. I don't want to spoil some episodes. So like these are banger episodes coming up. So
I mean, just leak. No, but like leak pieces of it so
Okay,
people will
these
go
will come
watch
up.
it.
So
You don't want to spoil episodes.
well, these are good ones. So I met this girl.
No,
This
I
was
mean,
like
like,
really early on.
How
in
are
the
you going to
pod.
spoil it? It's a long ass episode. You know,
Yeah, these
people
are
are going to
long.
want to hear more of it.
This is a lot. So I meet this girl through work, and like she knows what I'm doing. And I hear her talking about like a clairvoyant at the end of the meeting. And like they know I'm working on this podcast. This is pretty early on into making it. I'm like, what's like this clairvoyant? And she's talking to the coworker and she's like, oh yeah, like I see a clairvoyant. Sometimes it's not a big deal. I'm like, and dude, by the way, I've been very skeptical of psychics my whole life. I think they're mostly like con artists, basically. And probably a lot of them are for the most part. And I've done one before, dude. I went to a psychic. They had one at like a birthday party or a graduation party. And I'm like, okay, whenever they ask me a question, I'm going to lie and just like see what they do. So like the first thing they said was, how old are you? And I lied and I said I was like 19 or something. And they basically the whole reading was them like describing a college student. And I was not in college. They're like, oh, you're so worried about class and like blah, blah, blah. So that's why, like, I've always been like, yeah, these
That was a bad one. That was a bad one.
or a fake one, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Well,
so I've never had interest. So okay, so anyway, this girl's like, I see a clairvoyant sometimes, and the guy in the room with her is
okay,
like,
wait. I got to pause here for a second. I'm pausing my guest in real life. You have a friend that's like, I see a clairvoyant sometimes, like regularly, like a therapist. Like, what would it? Where? Why would she need to see a clairvoyant?
I mean, you're sounding exactly like I sounded in the moment, right? So imagine, if you will, like I just finished like a 3-hour meeting with these people and they know I work on this show and I talk about it all the time. So that's when I was like, wait, like you're holding out at me. How do you not mention this? But they get like weirdly cagey and they're both like, it's a guy and a girl. They're both like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, okay, like I'm the more curious now, like what's going on? The guy eventually tells me, he's like, well, the clairvoyant actually predicted you, meeting you. And I'm like, already like, dude, what the fuck are you talking? I'm like, literally like, are you guys crazy? And I'm like, all right. He's like, I'm like, all right, man, like, you know, whatever. Like, and he's like, I have an audio recording of it actually. And I'm like, okay. Like, he's like, I'll send it to you later. I'm like, all right. And I like didn't even get time to process that. So I like turned to the girl and I'm like, what's your story with this clairvoyant? Like, what's the deal? And she's like, well, it's a long story. And I'm like, what's the short version of the story? And she was like, well, my dad had a lot of very weird girlfriends and like wives through his life. She's like, basically like, I have had a crazy childhood.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, and I had a really bad stepmom. And like, basically I went to this clairvoyant and the clairvoyant told me that my dad's going to die soon because this woman's poisoning him. And she was like,
What?
She's like, 3 days later, the police raided his house and she was trying to kill him. She was poisoning him with benzos and like all this shit. And I was like, I'm like, are you fucking serious? And like, so I was like, we were about to leave. So I'm like, let me walk you to your car. And so like, I started getting this story from her and I like, it took a couple weeks of convincing her to like talk about it. Cause it's like a traumatic thing, but
is your friend Michaela Peterson?
No.
You can come out and admit it if that's what we're talking about.
No.
The benzo murderer is Michaela Peterson's mother, and the guy who almost died is Jordan Peterson.
So, also the stepmom's like currently on the run from the police. She's like a wanted criminal for doing this.
How does that even happen? Like, you can do that?
It was in Florida.
Yeah, they're pretty bad out there.
They're
They're pretty incompetent.
So I talk her into doing an interview. And then it was crazy. It was a 5-hour long interview. It took forever to edit. But obviously I wanted to talk to the clairvoyant too, because I'm like, who is this woman? Like, you know, I want to like get her to confirm some things. And she tells me who she is. Like it took a long time to like kind of get to this woman, if that makes sense. Like I tried to talk to the clairvoyant's daughter and be like, hey, like this is what I'm doing. It took a long time. And
What if she was playing hard to get?
It was just like, I needed to figure out the right approach.
I think a lot of these people are like very perceptive to how humans are and how they behave. I think that in order to be very good, even if it's a con, in order to be very good at like doing con shit like that, a better psychic, for example, that would have immediately noticed that you were lying either from your body language or the way you look, or had done the research prior, and would have been able to call you out on your bullshit, which would have probably changed your perception of the original psychic that you had a bad experience with.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of these people, like, even from a rational perspective, when you look at it, like, they're still...
What are you saying? I can't take this serious.
They're still achieving very impressive feats, is what I'm saying.
All psychics are cons. Dude, I'm pretty much with you. I don't, like, this is not, to be clear, this person's not a psychic that I'm doing a story about. This is literally like a mom who does this for her friends, is who the story's about. This is not like a psychic. And she does not consider herself a psychic. It's going to be a pretty interesting episode, but I ended up actually going to her and like, it worked out that like the best way for me to actually meet the woman was to go get read myself. So I just, I signed up like anonymously to go see her. And
okay, but she's fucking clairvoyant. Like, you can't, she knew you were coming. She must.
Well, yeah, but I wanted to like test it a little bit because, I mean, obviously like do my due diligence, but I was like, all right, I'm not going to like, I'm just going to sign up anonymously and try to not give any information. And then my plan was like, when she does this reading, like whatever it was, like just to not respond really, like if she was asking like questions, I would try not to like give her anything, if that makes sense. So I go in, like her husband answers the door and is just like very nonchalant, just like sits you down as you meditate. He like teaches you to meditate. And then you kind of like get in this meditative state, and then she comes in and she starts just like, she does a little thing, but then she like starts reading you, and she's like in this like trance almost. And she's hitting it like fast, nailing it, like about things that like, I mean, she immediately figures out what I'm doing. Like, by the way, at this point, like Otherworld Secret, like nobody even knows I'm doing it. And she's like, you host some kind of show, but you have a new show. That's weird. And she's like, you're doing like a weirder new show. And she's like, won't stop talking about it. She's describes like my dad in like crazy specifics. Some other weird shit, but it was just like interesting. Anyway, I was like able to meet her through that. I wasn't even completely sold on that, but
you know
like
who else does this? Nardwar.
Oh yeah.
The human serviette.
She does not research people. There's no way that she has time to do this. And like, if she researched me, she would have been able to say much more interesting stuff. But anyway, she's just an interesting person. So I have a few episodes on her. But dude, just to remind people, like my goal of this pod is I'm not trying to like convert anybody to this stuff. You know, like I don't really care if people believe or not. They're like, I'm just interested in it. Like, yeah. It's fascinating. But I've seen her read other people, and I've had some weird adventures with this woman. She's a very interesting character. She's like Belinda the Good Witch. It's wild. And she sees a lot of people secretly. I've since found out. Some famous people too on the low.
Wait, really?
Yep.
Who's the most famous person?
A major pop star that I'm not going to name.
I mean, they believe in a lot of crazy shit, to be honest.
I was going to ask, like, how pilled is your...
My audience is super skeptical, for sure. I mean, these are all like, listen, we're on Twitch. There's a lot of Reddit Andes here.
It's not Taylor Swift.
There's a lot of Reddit Andes in here. There's a lot of, r/atheism guys in here. There's a lot of like logic and reasoning guys in here. I yell at them all the time. But I myself am very skeptical.
I used to be more like that. But
I'm a very skeptical person. I'm not a very spiritual person, but I'm still fucking super superstitious. And like still kind of worried about it. Like, it's the Turkish in me where I'm like, I'm on queen. I'm on. You know, I don't want to disrupt the delicate flow. If it's out there, don't fuck with me. Okay, I don't want it. Stay away.
You can't write. There's certain things you can't completely write off. It would be silly to if a huge amount of people are experiencing the same thing. Even if you don't think it's paranormal, it's like something's still happening. It's worth looking into. I mean,
like Havana syndrome. Like, I think that, it's not real. I think that it's just like mass hysteria.
Yeah.
Shit like that happens all the time.
Imagine if instead of like a few CIA agents, that was like hundreds of thousands of people around the world.